Frank's right. Just text TIP to 321321 to get a complimentary bottle of award-winning Nugenics, the #1 selling free testosterone booster at GNC. Its unique man-boosting formula is powered by Testofen, a patented key ingredient clinically researched to help a man feel stronger, leaner, more energetic, and more passionate.
And guys, she'll like the difference too.
Nugenic samples are not available in stores. To get your complimentary bottle, text TIP to 321321. That's TIP to 321321.
So who's bringing home the bacon? A new survey says women are almost tied with men. An NBC News Wall Street Journal poll found 49% of women in the workforce say they are the primary breadwinners in their families. That includes 42% of working women with children, and that's up from 37% in 2000. But 61% of women say their male coworkers failed to treat them as equals, and 44% of women still say they've personally experienced some form of gender discrimination in the workplace. Exactly how many Facebook users are really deleting their accounts? Only Facebook knows for sure, and CEO Mark Zuckerberg has said the numbers are minuscule so far, but anecdotal reports are increasing, and it's clear Facebook is feeling the blowback from the data mining scandal.
Facebook is using my information in ways that I didn't sign up for, and in ways that I have no control over.
He can't bring himself to delete his account yet, unlike Professor Mike Brown.
So why did you quit Facebook?
I've been increasingly uncomfortable with them for a while now, but this latest revelation was just pretty clear that it was time to get out.
While there are tools on Facebook to download and delete your profile, experts like Cory Doctorow say it's no guarantee of privacy.
I don't think that data will ever disappear fully. Its partners will continue to retain that data unless you can track them down and get them to delete it.
NBC's Matt Bradley reporting, you can find out what data Facebook has collected about you by downloading what you've freely given it over the years, your own archive, which includes every photo and comment you've posted. In case you've forgotten, check out the page titled Accessing Your Facebook Data. And airline travel is at a new record high. The Transportation Department reports a 3% increase in domestic air travel last year to a record 965 million passengers. International travel rose 4.8%. Atlanta's airport had the most passengers boarding planes, followed by Los Angeles, Chicago O'Hare, and Dallas-Fort Worth. And the airline that carried the most passengers, Southwest, followed by Delta and American. Consumer and business news. Joe McConnell, NBC News Radio.
Welcome back, Dunc and Holder, live on Tuesday, March 27th. Coming to you from the iHeart Studios in downtown New Orleans, the greatest city on the planet. Claude Verdun, Dave DeCorbier in the house. And our cohort in crime, Larry Holder, still down in the Sunshine State at the NFL owners' meetings. He's going to check in with us in about 15 minutes and give us a report from the owners' meetings after having breakfast this morning, along with a lot of other reporters, with Saints head coach Sean Payton. This is an annual thing. It wasn't a special occasion. Larry did not do tea with Sean Payton. He actually...
Although it would have been nice.
He broke bread. It happens every year at the owners' meetings. At this time of year, all the NFL head coaches have a breakfast, and the reporters have a chance to sit down with them, have a little coffee and a bagel or two, and basically discuss the news of the offseason. It's the first real chance sometimes to get to the head coaches after free agency has begun and before the draft. And it's always a fun kind of laid-back affair. A lot of news usually is generated because coaches sometimes are speaking for the first time. And it's the first time we've heard from Sean Payton since the passing of Tom Benson, and also since Ndamukong Suh has committed now, I guess, to the Los Angeles Rams. So there's a lot of news generated from that breakfast, as always, and we're going to really make that the heart of our discussion today, especially during the first hour. After we visit with Larry Holder, we will talk to Josh Katzenstein at the top of the second hour, our New Orleans Saints beat reporter at NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune. Josh will weigh in on his thoughts from what Sean Payton said this morning. And then at 11:30, we're going to get a visit from one of our favorite people in the market, Brett Martell from the Associated Press, who will help us preview the big New Orleans Pelicans game tonight. They got a big one at the Smoothie King Center against the Portland Trail Blazers, who are arguably next to the Houston Rockets, the hottest team in the NBA. And the Pelicans got some help last night, Clyde. Shocking loss. I have some friends that are Minnesota Timberwolves fans, and they were not happy that the Timberwolves lost at home to the Memphis Grizzlies. So that helps in this wild Western Conference chase. It helps the Pelicans' cause as they try to avoid, I think everybody agrees, you want to avoid the 7 or 8 seed in the Western Conference because you don't want to play Golden State or Houston in round 1. That helps their case.
Yeah, and I just saw a graphic here, came across Twitter. Basically, Tibbs, which if you don't really know a lot of the story of Tom Thibodeau, great defensive mind, but is not very adept at using an entire roster to his credit. Last night against the Grizzlies, he used a 7.5 man rotation.
Saw that.
I mean, and including playing Jamal Crawford for 15 straight minutes at the end of the game.
Yeah,
there's no way.
I didn't understand it.
At this point in time of the year, it's about to be April. It is about to be the last 2-3 weeks of the season, and you're going to use 7.5 guys in games that you also need to kind of keep pace in the playoff race. That can't happen, and that's been the knock on Tom Thibodeau when he was with the Bulls and since on why it took him so long to get a job, because he's a great defensive mind. He can get teams to rally, but he plays guys too much. And at this point of the year, that's not a good thing, man.
Trying to win. He's trying to win, so he's playing his best players. But at some point, you have to kind of look at the bigger picture. That was a disappointing loss for them. But the first hour, let's focus on the Saints, and in particular, some of the news generated from Sean Payton this morning. And we want to get your thoughts as well. As always, calling into the program at 504-260-1280 will get you in. We'll get your opinions. And in particular, what I want to get your thoughts on is Sean Payton identified the musts for this team this offseason. They always have a list. He and Mickey Loomis, the Saints Brain Trust, they go into the offseason with a to-do list. And on that list, they categorize 3 different categories: musts, wants, and needs. And in the must category, he said today, those don't have any flexibility. We have to address the musts. And what was somewhat alarming to me was he said they still got 3 of their musts unaddressed. And the number one must, in my opinion, and same with Sean Payton, is the edge rusher position that is opposite Cameron Jordan. He said they still have not really addressed that, even though they re-signed Alex Okafor. I agree. That's not addressing it, especially with Okafor coming off of Achilles tendon tear.
Yeah.
You just don't know what Okafor is going to have at that position. Clearly, they need to address it. It's their number one need, and it's still unaddressed. And I don't know if they're going to address that in free agency. I don't know how they're going to address it unless they address it in the draft. So that was a little eye-opening to me. He also identified wide receiver and tight end as musts. So you got 3 things still out there that they're trying to identify. Now, yesterday news came out that the Saints have visited with Cameron Meredith, the Chicago Bears restricted free agent wide receiver, a player that is seen as like an ascending talent, a young kind of raw prospect who had a big year and then was basically out all last year. I think he had a knee injury that he suffered in the preseason. So he's kind of a under-the-radar type player. I like Cameron Meredith. It just depends on what the Saints would value him by bringing him in, what kind of contract they would try to offer him. They're not the only team that's done this with Cam Meredith. Some other teams have also brought him in. He's basically the same situation as Willie Snead.
Yeah.
The Bears can always match whatever offer any team makes to him. They have the right of first refusal, but it does show you that they're still trying to address the wide receiver position. So I don't think anybody's shocked that Sean Payton said edge rusher, wide receiver, tight end. We've talked about that over and over. Those positions have been identified. I just think it's interesting that 3 of them are still out there left unaddressed.
Yeah, and as he said, Sean Payton said himself yesterday this morning, he said, with these musts, there's no flexibility. It has to happen. So at this point, we know the directive that the Saints are taking. They are absolutely going all in on finding that edge rusher, finding a wide receiver, and finding a tight end. So that is their primary goals, their primary targets that they're looking for at this point. There's no flexibility in that. And so now you have to start thinking, now that the Indomitian Who, as I said on our in our Twitter, in our
nice.
post for the show,
nice play
now that
words.
Indomitian Who is over, now the Saints have nothing but space and opportunity here to go after these quote-unquote musts, and there's no denying that all three of those positions are positions of high intrigue and high need for the Saints going forward.
I agree. And one other topic for discussion today, we talked a little bit about it yesterday on the program. We even did a Twitter poll. Would the Saints be interested in Odell Beckham Jr.? Now, the New York Giants officials have come out and insisted publicly, we don't want to trade Odell Beckham Jr. But privately, some of the Giants beat reporters say that is all just window dressing, that they are entertaining offers for Odell Beckham Jr. It's probably similar to what we've seen in the past with the Saints. In other words, you're not shopping the player, but you're certainly willing to listen if somebody wants to call you and make an offer. And they are listening to offers for Odell Beckham Jr. Apparently the Rams have already called to inquire about the availability.
Can you imagine Sean? You talked about. Can you imagine Sean McVay's little interview this morning? I mean, I can imagine that was a lot of coffee and tea sipping at his table.
Well, the problem is they can't really discuss an individual player that's already under contract with another team. That falls under the tampering guidelines with the NFL. So they can't discuss a player like that that's under contract. But you can certainly get around it and certainly ask the question. He can always deny it. I thought it was interesting. Mary Kay Cabot, with our sister publication up in Cleveland, The Plain Dealer, she had a 12 reasons why the Browns should go after Odell Beckham Jr. file yesterday, and she made a great point. You reunite him with Jarvis Landry.
He put it on Twitter. He put on Twitter saying he would love to be reunited with his LSU teammate, and they could do big things together.
So that's the discussion item today. I want to hear what your thoughts. Should the Saints be interested? I have a column up on NOLA.com right now saying no. I don't think they should. I think it's not the right fit at the right time for the Saints. But I want to hear your thoughts. Tell me why I'm wrong, because certainly a lot of people filling my Twitter timeline telling me that much this morning, because people would love to see OBJ playing for the New Orleans Saints, coming home, LSU product, Isidore Newman standout, coming back home and helping the Saints make another Super Bowl run. So I could certainly see the argument to bring him in. I just don't agree with it right now. All right, we're going to take our first break, and when we come back, we're going to hear from Larry Holder down in Orlando, Florida at the NFL Owners Meeting. He's going to talk a little Sean Payton breakfast talk right here on Dunc and Holder. Sports 1280, NOLA.com, the iHeartRadio app. Stay with us.
Smart speaker on my desk. Who is smarter than all the rest?
A stable genius you may be, but those who win the smart money are surely more wise than thee.
You have up to 16 chances a day, every weekday to win $1,000 on Sports 1280, New Orleans.
Stop into Lowe's Spring Black Friday event, where you'll find savings on those projects popping up on your to-do list, like taking care of those uninvited weeds and insects. Get a free refill with purchase of Roundup Max Control Weed Killer with Wand. And buy Ortho Home Defense Extended Reach Insect Killer with Comfort Wand and also get a refill free. All projects have a starting point. Start with Lowe's. Offers valid through March 28th while supplies last. See store for details, U.S. only.
Don't miss your 15% off coupon today only at eBay. Our spring edition of Black Friday is here, and today only we're giving you an extra 15% off everything. Yes, everything. Now's the time to shop with an extra 15% off already great prices on a wide selection of your favorite brands with free shipping. Shop eBay right now and get everything you need for spring. Coupon valid today only from 1 to 8 p.m. Pacific Time.
I'm Dave Marley, president of Marley Drug. Are you taking Viagra? Now you can get sildenafil, the active ingredient in Viagra, in generic 20 milligrams for $2 per tablet. That's a savings of $50 per dose. Marley Drug is a North Carolina pharmacy delivering generic sildenafil to your door. For more information on sildenafil, go to marleygenerics.com or call us at 800-853-6375. That's 800-853-6375.
Question. When you walk into the boardrooms of the most successful companies here in Louisiana, who do you meet? Answer. Men and women who played high school sports. Education-based high school sports give us more than athletes we can root for. They give us leaders we can depend on. Question. So where will we find tomorrow's leaders? Answer. high school sports.
This message presented by the Louisiana High School Athletic Association and the Louisiana High School Athletic Directors Association.
This is Dunc and Holder on Sports 1280, New Orleans.
Welcome back, Dunc and Holder, Clyde Verdun, Jeff Duncan, and Dave DeCorbier sitting in the iHeart Radio Studios in downtown New Orleans, and we are fixing, as they say in the South, to go down to Orlando, Florida, and visit with my cohort in crime, half of the Dunc and Holder headliner act, Larry Holder. Larry, what's going on, buddy? How's Florida this morning?
It's a little windy, nice and sunny, blue skies, but yeah, it's been definitely a busy morning here at the NFL owners meetings as we had a chance to catch up with Sean Payton for about an hour, and that started at like 6:15 Central Time in the morning. Whoa. So if you had any Twitter updates and if your phone updates whenever I tweet, I was waking you up pretty darn early, and so I apologize, but look, had to bring the goodies to you in real time.
Yeah, and I tried to explain to listeners that might not be familiar with the process, but this is part of the annual coaches breakfast at the NFL owners meetings. All the coaches are down there, and the AFC and NFC coaches meet. It's kind of all at one time, right? They're doing it all together now?
Yeah, this year is all at once. In the past several years, they would usually split up. Have the AFC go on Tuesday and then the NFC go on Wednesday, but I think what the logic is that they've been ending meetings the last couple of years earlier and earlier, and so people are ready to get out of Dodge, and so that's I think that's the philosophy there. If they were able to close these things out early, so they did them all at once. So yeah, so basically, every coach is sitting at a table, and you basically just go up and ask questions, and usually I had on the AFC day, you'd be able to go and ask other coaches about, former players and such. But no, today I sat tight with Sean the whole time. And, he was, even though it was early, he was entertaining and pretty informative actually today.
Well, that's what I was going to get to next. What stood out to you most? I saw obviously all of your updates, and you've got an update already, a couple of things up on NOLA.com. But what stood out to you, Larry, from what Sean had to say?
For me, it's more about, all right, what are the needs going forward? And I asked specifically about the edge rusher spot. And I said, look, you guys brought back Alex Okafor, but is there still a need at edge rusher? And he said, absolutely. He says, look, they have not filled that spot yet because they don't know if Okafor – when's he going to be completely healthy? But he qualified that as a must, not just a need, but a must. Like they have to address that. He also pointed at wide receiver, and he also pointed at tight end as musts. And also, even though they re-signed and brought back veteran Jermon Bushrod, they're still looking and searching around for that utility guy like Senio Kelemete. So. That's something that as far as the different positions, we kept talking about for months just about wide receiver because you have, say, Brandon Coleman's an unrestricted free agent, and Willie Snead is a restricted free agent, and they had visited Cameron Meredith, a restricted free agent from the Bears. So Sean Payton basically alluded that they could make something happen in free agency and or the draft at that position.
Yeah, what do you make of the Cam Meredith move? I think I like that move, but again, the Chicago Bears could match anything the Saints offer him, so they'd almost have to go over the top, I think, to get him to sign with the Saints. And they're not the only team, right? Other teams have gone after Meredith.
Yeah, the Saints were his third visit, and so. Obviously, other teams are interested, and he is kind of in the same boat as Willie Snead. It's the no compensation, low restricted tender. So yeah, but they could match, and that's just like it's funny, a couple of years ago, Josh Hill signed an offer sheet with the Bears, and the Saints ended up matching. But yeah, I do think that is Meredith is an interesting receiver because he was hurt last year, so you're almost kind of rolling the dice a little bit. But it probably wouldn't cost you big bucks, but the Bears would have an opportunity to match.
I'll tell you, one of the things that kind of raised my eyebrows a little bit from what Sean said this morning was he admitted that the injury history of Terron Armstead is a little bit of a concern for them, and that finding a backup or a Senio Calamente replacement has become a priority. So is that Jermon Bushrod, or is he saying you think they still need to consider depth at what offensive line?
It seems like even though they have Jermon Bushrod, that they'd still like to add some depth. Yeah, and that's how I asked specifically. I was the one who asked about Armstead, and of course Sean's like, there's always concern. He didn't even know what I was asking. I'm like, yes, so I know you're always concerned about everything. But yeah, I think that that was interesting, that because of that, they find it's going to be a priority to probably, I would assume, draft a guy. And that would kind of take care of that. Because, look, Jermon Bushrod, he may only be around for 1 year, and then that might be it for him. So it's something that they're looking at. But, yeah, they've got to cover their bases just because Senio's gone, no more Zach Strief. And, if say, Terron Armstead were to be injured again, I mean, I guess you could plug in Jermon Bushrod over there. But yeah, you don't have a lot of depth. And it's certainly something that, especially with the price tag on Terron Armstead, it's certainly becoming a little hazy by making that contract because of all these injuries that have happened since then.
Well, Larry, that literally ties into one part of the interview or the Q&A that you had with Sean Payton, saying that it's important to stack another good draft class behind the last two. Can you talk a little bit more about kind of the thought process, and then taking it into knowing full well that they're not only talking about having to look at guys maybe on the line, talking about both on defense and offense, but also talking about quarterback, because there was one quarterback that Sean Payton brought up that everybody kind of, has not necessarily passed on, but they're wondering if the intrigue between the Saints and Lamar Jackson could be there.
Well, as far as the draft class, yeah, I mean, if you can be successful in the draft, it can buoy you in other places. First off, obviously, you're getting good players to come on a team, but secondly, they're cheap. So that's a big plus. That's why the Saints actually aren't in total salary cap disaster like we've kind of seen for many years, because they've got cheap quality players. Now, as far as Lamar Jackson, that's the quarterback who was brought up. Look, he was specifically asked about Lamar Jackson. It wasn't that he just threw him in conversation. But someone asked him about Lamar Jackson because he basically referred to the top four quarterbacks. And we know at this rate, the top four, or some in whatever order, it's Sam Darnold, Josh Rosen, Josh Allen, and Baker Mayfield. And so, yeah, but yeah, and he was basically explaining, and this isn't the first time he's done this. I know he's told me and Jeff before this in sit-down interviews we've had in the past that, if you're going to take a quarterback, you've got to be aware of what makes him good, because you're not going to necessarily find a Drew Brees clone, even though you're going to try to look for one. You're not going to find one. And so you almost going to have to, for some things, cater to the things that he does well, and not necessarily change the player like a total transformation. So, yeah, it's I'm actually going to write a little bit about the quarterback stuff later on today, and you can see it on NOLA.com. But, yeah, it just the quarterback, it's going to be interesting just because, even though Drew Brees is playing well, you got to question and say, all right, when's that time that you're going to want to take a guy? And, there's a lot of talk about this year's class. And so, yeah, it's certainly intriguing as we go a month away from the draft.
Talking to Larry Holder, half of the Duncan Holder Show, who's down in Orlando, Florida at the NFL owners meetings. And Larry, I gotta ask you about Odell Beckham Jr. I have a column up this morning saying that I don't think the Saints should entertain trade talks if Odell Beckham Jr. is on the market. I saw this morning where Adam Schefter basically was saying what I think, and that is the Giants aren't necessarily shopping him, but they're going to listen to offers just like anybody would because of the circumstances with Odell Beckham Jr. And Pat Shurmur came out this morning and gave what I would consider to be a lukewarm endorsement. He said, quote, he's on our team right now. That was what he said about Odell Beckham Jr. What do you think about Beckham Jr.? Do you think the Saints should be in that market, or how would you see their interest in Odell Beckham Jr.?
Well, look, I could tell you even to open these meetings, John Mara, the Giants owner, was speaking about. I literally had just got here, and he was talking, and right there, I walked up, and he was talking about Odell Beckham, and I can say it's, when they're talking about him, it's not these glowing endorsements like they used to be. And then I know this morning I just saw, as Twitter's flying around during these meetings and in the mornings of the interview, that Sean McVay from the Rams kind of spoke about Odell Beckham, but didn't really acknowledge that there were any trade talks. But I think the Rams have kind of been a reported team that would be interested in him. And look, I just think if you're going to trade for Odell Beckham, you're not trading for him for 1 year. You're trading for him for the long term, which means you're going to have to pay him major money. And would the Saints be willing to do that? I'd probably say no. I'm sure they're having to save up their dollars and cents at some point for Michael Thomas. And so when they say they're looking at wide receiver, I don't know if they're necessarily looking at Odell Beckham, but I just don't think it would be optimal for the Saints to go that route. I mean, when have they ever really had to pay for a wide receiver in the Sean Payton, Drew Brees era? Like, never. Michael Thomas will probably be the first one. Like, they didn't want to pay Brandon Cooks, because of Michael Thomas. So and then, I get the connection. LSU is from New Orleans, yada, yada, yada. I just don't think that plays into their thinking even if they were pondering that.
Larry, and breaking away real quick, I mean, obviously the Rams have been a little bit of the talk of the offseason. Just in your mind, obviously now with Ndamukong Suh being in fold, where do the Rams stand? Where do the Rams stand in the NFC, and where do you think that they can go from here building upon this?
Well, I think they're certainly a lot sexier of a team now that they've made all these moves. And you look at it, and do I think they're a legitimate force in the NFC? I think absolutely. I think they see an opportunity where some teams are down, and they're able to have some capital and pay for some players. But yeah, we'll just kind of spin it back to the Saints here for a second. But yeah. Sean Payton had no problem admitting that Ndamukong Suh got more cash from the Rams, and so he took that as opposed to because, look, the Rams present winning and money. The Saints didn't present a ton of money. They presented a winning opportunity, but they didn't present dollars. And but yeah, look, they're making a push, and when you're in LA and it's Hollywood, and you're trying to compete, say, even like Lakers, Dodgers town, like no one knows the Rams. So I think that's part of it too. And I think, the Rams, they end up losing Sammy Watkins, and so they could easily be in the market for a wide receiver, and Star Power buys tickets, and that's why I think Odell Beckham is kind of linked to them as well. So look, they're going for it. But I'm curious to see how long they go for it, because, look, Suh's probably only going to be there for a year, because you're not going to pay Suh again and then have to pay Aaron Donald. So that's why Suh's there on a one-year deal. But yeah, as far as this year, it certainly seems to me that they're going all in, and they're definitely a team that you got to pay attention to. And, of course, the Saints are going to play them. So it's a team you got to keep an eye on for sure.
That's Larry Holder, half of Duncan Holder, calling in from Orlando, Florida at the NFL Owners Meetings. Larry, when you headed back our way?
Tomorrow. Actually, I think Roger Goodell's end of the meetings press conference will be tomorrow. We'll start to probably see some some rule changes trickle out. And I know Sean Payton's, he's involved in that process because he's on the competition committee. So we will be wrapping up here tomorrow.
All right, Larry, safe travels back, and I know you're going to be off for the rest of the week. Enjoy your time off. Don't you have an anniversary to celebrate? Is that
tomorrow?
Big day.
So I better get out of here as quickly as I can.
You need to bring back Joni like a Orlando, Florida snow globe or something, just to let her know you're thinking about her.
It's like Minnie Mouse ears or something.
Yeah, something. Just let her know she's in your thoughts always, even when you're out at Florida. Thanks, Larry. We'll talk to you soon, bud. Thanks a lot.
All right, guys. See y'all. Okay.
All right, that's Larry Holder. Let's take a break, and when we come back, we'll talk about what Larry had to say, what Sean Payton had to say, and also about Odell Beckham Jr. I want to get your thoughts about that right here on Dunc and Holder, Sports 1280, NOLA.com, the iHeartRadio app. Stay with us.
Your forecast on Sports 1280, New Orleans.
This report is brought to you by Zurich Classic.
From the Fox 8 Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Bruce Katz. Through the afternoon on your Tuesday, mostly cloudy skies, a windy day, slight chance of a shower at 20%, the high of 83. Tonight, mostly cloudy, 64 the overnight low, and tomorrow on Wednesday, rain chance by midday at 40% with a high of 81. Thursday, the stormy day as we go through the morning into the afternoon. Thursday's rain chance 80% with a high of 75. And then, just in time for Good Friday and the Easter weekend, we turn breezy and cooler as sunshine returns. From the Fox 8 Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Bruce Katz with your Weather Authority forecast.
Enjoy great New Orleans food from 8 local restaurants right on the 18th hole. Plus the excitement of watching the greatest golfers in the world. Now that's a party. The Champions Club at the Zurich Classic, April 26th through 29th. For tickets, call today or visit ZurichGolfClassic.com.
O'Reilly. If you do-it-yourselfers are looking for the right tool for the job, stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts Power Torque Tools DIY Day Sale. You'll find a wide selection of Power Torque tools on sale now and guaranteed for life. Power Torque Tools DIY Day Sale going on now at O'Reilly Auto Parts. Better parts, better prices every day. Limits apply. See store for details.
O'Reilly Auto Parts. I'm Dave Marley, president of Marley Drug. Are you taking Viagra? Now you can get sildenafil, the active ingredient in Viagra, in generic 20 milligrams for $2 per tablet. That's a savings of $50 per dose. Marley Drug is a North Carolina pharmacy delivering generic sildenafil to your door. For more information on sildenafil, go to marleygenerics.com or call us at 800-853-6375. That's 800-853-6375.
Capital One presents Congress finalizing the Louisiana Purchase.
Napoleon will never go for our offer. It's too low. He's too low.
You're a nincompoop.
Oh, Jefferson has something.
Gentlemen, I've just received word from my Capital One app. The Louisiana Purchase is complete.
Instant purchase notifications from Capital One, so you won't miss a purchase. Technology this helpful could make history.
What's in your wallet?
Not available for debit cards. Capital One Bank USA N.A.
Following a tough March filled with nor'easters, it doesn't feel like spring yet on most of the East Coast, but a New York City dermatologist is warning about sunburn. Dr. Deborah Wattenberg of Mount Sinai Hospital says you can get sunburn on a chilly day just as easily as a warm one. She says we may be especially susceptible to spring sunburn this year because of a tough flu season that had a lot of folks downing antibiotics. They're known to make you more vulnerable to the sun's rays. She and the American Academy of Dermatology recommend wearing sunscreen with an SPF of at least 30 every day, no matter what the thermometer says. Well, a new study suggests that exercising less than 20 minutes a day is linked to a shorter lifespan. Researchers at Duke and the National Cancer Institute found that people who got less than 20 minutes of moderate to vigorous physical activity had the highest risk of death. Health Update, Sarah Lee Kessler, NBC News Radio.
My name is Jacob Sanchez.
And I'm Carmen Sanchez. People with autism need to know that they're loved and that they're accepted. We felt like we were alone, and now we feel like part of some big, amazing community. Fundraising is important because it funds vital programs, research. The hope is that this can be turned into resources for people in our community. Register for an Autism Speaks walk.
Your home for home team talk. Sports 1280 New Orleans.
Welcome back. Jeff Duncan, Clyde Verdun in the house. We're talking Saints, but before we get into this discussion of what Larry Holder said, Sean Payton said today, I'd like to talk about a couple news items that have come across our desk, both involving New Orleans sports scenes. First of all, Melvin Frazier, the great swingman for the Tulane Green Wave, has declared for the NBA draft. He's going to not hire an agent so he can maintain his college eligibility that way, but he's going to test the waters, and I don't think that's any surprise to anybody. He'd been leaning that way, and it makes sense to me. You've got to take advantage of the opportunity when it's there. Melvin Frazier right now projected as like a late first round, early second round prospect. He is going to step into the NBA, assuming he does continue on with the NBA draft. I think he'll step into the NBA and contribute right away as a defensive player. He is a tremendous lockdown defender. He's a perfect 6'6", long, wiry, athletic guy that can defend these 3-and-D players, these wings that the NBA is really going to. That's the trend of the NBA, and Melvin Frazier will have a skill set right away. His offensive game is developing, but he can come into the NBA right away and be a lockdown defender and play that role while his offensive game develops.
And as we're seeing in the NBA, especially now, teams are looking for guys to be able to come out and play defense on the wings. That's such a key position for guys to be able to come into and be able to, like you said, contribute, because not only is an offensive game important, obviously basketball is a game of scoring, but you got to get stops, and you got to have guys who can be hybrids, who can cover a lot of stretch guys, shooting guards, point guards. Guys like that can have staying power in the league. We've seen it happen before.
Yeah, and I think Frazier knows that, and I think he's going to have an opportunity to play at the next level, whether he gets drafted in the first round or not. I think if he goes in the top of the second round, that's not a bad spot. We've seen a lot of guys contributing. Now, I think the NBA is kind of opened up to that too. I mean, now the problem is I don't think the contracts in the second round are guaranteed.
No, but it still cements the fact that you're not having to go to – you're not waiting on a team to call you to go into their camps starting in, September and October, or you're lucky enough that means he's also going to go to the Summer League and get chances to really – I mean, the Summer League is becoming a big deal now for the NBA. The Summer League is, it's on TV now. It's on ESPN. It's in the doldrums of summer right after the draft, and you can get seen by a lot of people and really make your mark, and that could be huge for him, as opposed to if you're not one of those guys, you hope to be picked up so you can be on a Summer League team, or just hope to be picked up by September, October. One
other news item, Clyde, just came across my email from Tom Long out at the Zurich Classic. We have a new team that's committed. Ryder Cup captain Jim Furyk, longtime veteran player on the PGA Tour. He's going to team with another veteran PGA Tour player, David Duval. That team has committed to the Zurich Classic. So another headliner. Yeah, another
great names, man.
Couple big-time headliner acts, and the field just continues to get better and better at the Zurich Classic. The decision a year ago by the Zurich officials and the PGA Tour to make this a team event, I think, is paying off big time. The field is by far the best field that they've ever had a year ago, and I think it has a chance with Sergio Garcia now in the lineup, and the potential to add Jason Day and Justin Rose and potentially Bubba Watson, who just won this weekend on the tour. It has the potential to be even better than a year ago, and that's saying something, because I thought last year, I might be wrong, but I think they had 7 of the top 10 players in the world in the field a year ago, and I think it looks like a very similar lineup this year. So that's great news for the Zurich Classic. All right, let's put it out there again. Odell Beckham Jr., yes or no from the New Orleans Saints? 504-260-1280 if you want to give us your thoughts. We've got a little time here before the top of the hour break. We'll hear from Josh Katzenstein at the top of the 11 o'clock hour. We'll ask Josh about some of the news coming out of Saints camp down in Orlando today from Sean Payton, but also ask him about OBJ. Look, I like Odell Beckham Jr. Don't get me wrong. I'm not anti-Odell Beckham Jr. I just don't think he's the right fit for the Saints right now, and he's going to cost a fortune.
Yeah, let's not, and I think that's the thing, specifically when, because we were talking about, obviously your Twitter feed getting blown up today because of the story, because of the headlines, which, we need you to click on. So click on links. That's why we do it. But let's not hold any punches here. Odell Beckham Jr. is a seminal talent in the NFL, and he wants to get paid now. He doesn't want to get paid tomorrow. He doesn't want to get paid next year. He doesn't want to get paid 2 years from now. He wants his money now. He believes that he is one of the best players, regardless of position in the NFL, and he wants his money now. The Saints can't afford to do that at this point in time, and neither is Odell Beckham Jr. going to say, if you can pay this $8.5 million this year, and then maybe we'll go in next year and talk or whatever. It's not worth it. It's not worth it to what the Saints are trying to do, and so this has nothing to do with specifically anything else, but the numbers don't match up. The numbers don't match up. They don't match up for the Saints for what they're trying to do, and clearly, as we've talked about with Larry today, their needs are very clear: an edge rusher opposite Cam Jordan, a tight end, and a wide receiver. In that order, as must-have they can get, whether through the draft or through free agency. And then let's not, again, gloss over the fact that he comes with some baggage. He comes with some baggage predetermined that is not anybody's fault but his. It's not ours. The only reason it's news is because we're covering it because it's getting out there. We're not the ones that, were able to get that Snapchat video. We weren't the ones, getting these clubs videos or all the rest of the stuff that he's doing. We get it. Like, this is the new age, man. This is the new age star athlete who wants to not only be paid and the best at his chosen profession, but they want it off the field too. They want the endorsements. They want the fame. They want the bright lights. They want all of it. But at that same time, you can't want all of that and then still have these things happen and then wonder why everybody's picking on you. No one's picking on you. You're picking on yourself. You're the one that's getting this stuff out there and putting yourself in bad positions. Is that worth it?
Well, and let me be clear on this. The Saints could afford to pay him. They could afford to pay him right now and maybe next year. But the point is, Mike Thomas, his contract is going to be due a new contract in 2020, and then you've got a problem. You can't pay Odell Beckham Jr., who's wanting $20 million a year. He wants to be the highest paid receiver in the NFL. You can't pay him that type of money, what Michael Thomas is going to deserve, and also pay Drew Brees. Now, what you could do is say, short-term window here. We've got 2 years. We're paying right now Mike Thomas on his rookie contract. Let's go for it these next 2 years. That's Drew Brees' contract life right now. These next 2 years, bring in OBJ. We trade the first-round pick. We're going for it. I could see an argument for that, and I wouldn't necessarily say it's the worst move ever, but you can't do it long term. At some point in 2020, you're either going to have to cut loose Odell Beckham Jr. or you're not going to re-sign Mike Thomas. One of those two. You can't afford to pay both those guys number one receiver money and have an elite quarterback. So, yeah, that's the argument you could make. We're going for it. The Rams are going for it. The Packers are going for it. So are we. Let's strike while the iron's hot. But long-term team building, it doesn't make much sense to me. And you're right. I think all the off-the-field issues that Odell Beckham Jr. brings with him, and there are multiple ones, I think outweigh the reward that he would bring on the field. And there's no doubt he is a dynamic playmaker. All right, well, let's go to the phone lines and get your thoughts on this. Orrin in New Orleans East wants to check in and give us his thoughts. Orrin, what's going on today?
Hey, man, I'm doing great. I'm tell you, I was great. I was so excited to hear about Odell Beckham being on a trading block. And I just have an interesting scenario. I know that our cap space is tight, but what if we traded a first-round draft pick and Teron Armstead? I love Teron Armstead, but he only plays about 8 to 10 games a year. We already have a franchise tackle. He could go into a left tackle, and then we could replace the right tackle with a mid-round player. And then we can afford to pay a playmaker like Odell Beckham, give a first-round pick, who we're probably spending on someone like Christian Kirk anyway, hoping that he'll turn out to be an Odell Beckham, and then we can make that work.
Well, that's not a bad idea, Orrin. Thanks for calling in and weighing in, because I do think that's a good point. The Saints could trade a player, say a Ted Ginn Jr., somebody along with a draft pick, to get Odell Beckham Jr. and relieve some of the salary cap. I think the problem with Teron Armstead is the Giants just signed Nate Solder to be their left tackle.
Yeah.
And they paid him big bucks.
Yeah.
So they don't need Teron Armstead. So the thought of trading a player to relieve some of the salary cap space and a draft pick does make sense. I just don't think it's Terran Armstead that the Giants would be interested in return. Now, maybe you say, hey, we'll throw in Ted Ginn Jr., who's older, kind of plays a similar style of game at receiver to Odell Beckham Jr., but he would be a bridge player for the Giants because he's up in age. He's around 30 years old, whereas Odell Beckham Jr. is in his prime at 25.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I mean, it's a great idea in theory, but it's the same idea, though. Who is going to want a player that they know, who have seen, can maybe only give you 8 to 10 games a year in Terran Armstead? That's going to be a little tough to swing. Now, somebody might say that that's better than nothing, but it's going to be hard to, try to move a player like that because you know that at some point along he's going to get injured in Terran Armstead, and unfortunately he may not be as useful. Depending on the first round pick, absolutely. In fact, I think we should probably talk about that more. Is how likely is it, do you think the Saints are going to keep this pick at number 27? Because how much is it worth it if we're talking about best player available, and or what could you possibly turn for this pick that might get you a lot longer as opposed to the rest of the picks that you have on the back end of the draft?
All right, well, keep that thought in mind. We'll come back after this break and talk about it because I think that's a good point. Do the Saints stay put at number 27? I think they might make a move this year. You're listening to Dunc and Holder, Sports 1280, NOLA.com, the iHeartRadio app. Stick with us.
She's in my head.
A 4-foot by 6-foot box of dirt lies in wait, lined with chalk, undisturbed. For now, the Cakes are ready to dig back in for another summer on Sports 1280 New Orleans.
Mr. Ed's Seafood and Italian Restaurant, serving the best fried chicken in town, fresh Louisiana seafood, as well as delicious Italian dishes. Try our daily chef specials or an overstuffed po' boy. Open Monday through Saturday from 11 a.m. till 9 p.m. with 2 locations to serve you. In Bucktown at 1001 Live Oak between Bonneville and Lake Avenue, or in Kenner at 910 West Esplanade at Chateau Boulevard. Let Mr. Ed's cater your next event. Mr. Ed's Seafood and Italian Restaurant. 2 great locations, 1 great menu. Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House, now open in the quarter 7 days a week at 512 Bienville.
The 4 for $4 from Wendy's has a lot of fans because it's a deal that gives you a sandwich plus 4 nuggets, a small fry, and drink, all for just $4. But now the 4 for $4 has more variety than ever with 8 sandwich choices.
I'm loyal to the double stack.
I'm Junior Bacon Cheeseburger through and through.
I pledge myself to the crispy chicken sandwich. I'm loyal to my hunger. Whether you're loyal to one sandwich or all 8, the Wendy's 4 for $4 has a sandwich for you. So try them all and pick your favorite. Now that's deliciously different.
At participating Wendy's for a limited time. Offer not valid in Alaska and Hawaii.
War, poverty, and disaster have left millions of children around the world orphaned, abandoned, alone. When their parents can't be there, SOS Children's Villages is there in 134 countries, including the U.S. To make a difference in a child's life, go to sosusa.org.
Mixed reviews for Fitbit's newest smartwatch. Engadget says the Versa is the best looking of the 2 Fitbit watches, has a comprehensive range of health tracking features, a simplified operating system, boasts 4-day battery life, and at $200 is one of the cheaper smartwatches on the market. However, it does not have GPS built in, so you'll have to use your phone if you want to track your running route, and there's no Fitbit Pay. You can't buy things directly from your watch. Google out with some education-focused tablets. The Acer Chromebook Tab 10 integrates into IT systems of schools to give students a device they can pass around and jot notes on with stylus and touch controls. The 9.7-inch tablet retails for $329. You can now watch the end of a basketball game for just 99 cents. The NBA is testing the 99-cent stream that lets you watch the final quarter of a live game through the NBA app. One other Hoops note, YouTube TV is now the first ever presenting sponsor of the 2018 NBA Finals. Tech Report, Larry Olson, NBC News Radio.
Hear my word.
Dunc and Holder on Sports 1280 New Orleans.
Man, that's good stuff. Thanks, Dave. Dave knows my music tastes.
David Draymond is probably one of the best singers in Dave Draymond of Disturbed, obviously. One of the best singers, rock singers on the planet right now. His voice is fantastic.
I agree, and I did not know that he had that range until I heard this song.
Oh, yeah.
Unbelievable voice.
We should make this like our keyword for next hour's free tickets.
What, Disturbed?
Sure, that works for me.
That will be
down with the sickness is the phrase. Down with the sickness is the phrase.
Yeah, we're going to give away some Pelicans tickets in the next hour. So
It's for the Wednesday game, April 4th, 7 p.m. tip.
Grizzlies, right?
Yes, sir.
The Grizzlies, who beat the Timberwolves last night, they come to New Orleans April 4th. So listen in. We'll give that promotion out in the next hour. But a couple of tickets to the Pels game against the Grizzlies April 4th on Wednesday at the Smoothie King Center. And Clyde, we never did give the results of our Duncan Holder poll yesterday, asking fans how they felt about Odell Beckham Jr. Should the Saints make a move for him? Should they try to trade for him? Should they be in that number of teams that already the Rams reportedly have made calls? We hear the Browns are interested. A bunch of teams are going to be interested in a player like him. What were the results of our DNH poll?
Yeah, so if you're following us on Twitter, at Duncan Holder on Twitter is the handle. So our question was simple. With tense times in the Big Apple and talk about his future with the Giants, should the Saints try to land Odell Beckham Jr.? And we had 4 options, starting with absolutely, yes, but at a good price, skeptical, and not worth it. In one of the more closer polls, and it was just 2 hours, it was only the length of the show, in 342 casted votes, 32% of voters went with not worth it. 30% said absolutely. So literally you are at the very top, oh yeah, do whatever you can to go get him, or absolutely not worth it.
So the two extremes were about the same.
We're about the same.
Response-wise.
With 25% saying yes, but at a good price, and 13% saying skeptical. So for as much as, the vocal majority is coming out and saying that he's not worth it, including our YouTubers who have basically compared Ndamukong Suh and OBJ to Des Bryant, Terrell Owens, and Chad Johnson, Ojo Cinco. Clearly, there are some people out there who think that it's at least worth looking at.
I think it wouldn't be unwise to kick the tires and find out what kind of offer the Giants might be looking at. But and I can see the Giants' point. I mean, the Giants have a new head coach, Pat Shurmur. They have a new general manager, Dave Gettleman, and they're probably looking to move on from Eli Manning in the near future and maybe draft their quarterback of the future here in the top 5. They got the number 2 pick in the overall draft. So this is an organization in transition, and that's when these kind of deals occur, especially when you're probably not going to pay him $20 million a year. Maybe the Giants will. Maybe the Giants are saying their front office might be savvy enough to say, you know what, let's just let all this fester out there that he might be on the trade block. And it's like a wake-up call for Odell Beckham Jr. Maybe that's what they're doing here, just playing a little mind game with him, and the whole time they plan to bring him back into the fold on a long-term deal. I think that's probably what's going on. But right now, everybody's talking about OBJ and could he be traded, and it makes sense. He is 25 years old. In the first 3 years of his NFL career, he had the most receptions and yards of any player with the exception of Randy Moss. That's what type of dynamic playmaker we're talking about.
Yeah, and to your point, too, and as someone just astutely put on our YouTube stream, if the Giants are posturing in the public and using the media to drive a hard line, if you're OBJ, I mean, that might make you feel some type of way, as our YouTuber put it, because I think it's a dangerous game. And I mean, it's like I think Larry brought up yesterday, it's a game of chicken to see who's going to be the first one to bite first, who's going to be the first one to relent or back away from the ledge. And again, as we said in the previous segment, Odell has brought a lot of stuff on himself that none of us had anything to do with. He's still a great talent. And for the Giants are in a team that are transitioning from one era to another era, and they're trying to figure out how to navigate it with bringing back Eli for what, at the max, maybe what, a year? Maybe? Year or two?
At the 2 tops.
How are you going to move forward? Because you have the number 2 overall pick in the draft. You have the number 2 overall pick, so you're likely going quarterback with that, right? Like, there's no way you're not going to not go quarterback there. And then you need to have talent around the quarterback eventually to start building that around, not just on defense, not just on offense, but on defense as well. So I don't know. It just seems like I think there are ways within the NFL to be able to get through to a player. I'm not sure if this is a player that you want to do that with, because I think OBJ is more willing, because we've seen this before, because he held out. It wasn't last year, was it? It was 2 years ago, maybe. He didn't report right away to camp, or he didn't report to OTAs. But I remember
he said he's not going to.
He said he's not doing it
this year.
Someone's going to have to eventually relent.
So
Someone's got to do something.
I think that goes into it. All right, hour 1 in the books. We'll be back in hour 2 to continue this discussion of Odell Beckham Jr. and the New Orleans Saints, potential interest, potential not interest. We want your thoughts. But we'll talk about at the top of the hour with Josh Katzenstein, who's going to call in at 11:05, and then we'll hear from Brett Martell at 11:30 and get his thoughts on the Saints, and also he'll give us a preview of the Pelicans' big game tonight against the Portland Trailblazers at the Smoothie King Center. You're listening to Duncan Holder, Sports 1280, NOLA.com, the iHeartRadio app. Stay with us.
Here's today's tax tip. Tax deductions, exemptions, and credits can help lower the amount of taxes you owe during tax season. Jackson Hewitt Chief Tax Officer Mark Steber says tax credits reduce the amount of taxes that you owe.
A tax credit is a dollar-for-dollar offset on your tax return. A $100 credit is worth $100 to the taxpayer. And some credits are even better than a normal credit. They are refundable even if your income goes to zero or your tax liability goes to zero, and they're called refundable credits.
And Jackson Hewitt Chief Tax Officer Mark Sieber explains that tax deductions and exemptions are different than credits.
A deduction, on the other hand, and an exemption is a form of deduction, is simply a reduction on your tax return. Think of it as a deduction that reduces your income and reduces your corresponding tax liability.
Charitable donations and education expenses are some common tax deductions. Tax filers have the option to claim either the standard deduction or itemized deductions, but not both. That's today's tax tip from NBC News Radio. I'm Mark Mayfield.
WODT WNOE FM HD2 New Orleans. Listen on the free iHeartRadio app. Search Sports 1280.
Fox Sports trending now.
Browns GM John Dorsey confirmed the team is open to trading the top overall pick in the upcoming NFL draft. Dorsey said, to get us better, I'll explore every opportunity there is up until it comes time to make that pick. Well, former UCLA coach Jim Mora offers his advice on who he thinks Cleveland should take if they keep the pick.
Because of fit, I would take Sam Darnold if I were the Cleveland Browns. I think that that blue-collar, gritty attitude, I think his teammates will love him. I think the city will love him. They'll say the right thing, come in and represent well. I think he kind of represents what Cleveland is. And then if I was one of the New York teams, I'd take Josh like that. I think they're both going to be great pros.
Talking about Josh Rosen, formerly of UCLA, and despite trade rumors involving Odell Beckham Jr., Giants coach Pat Shurmur says he expects Beckham to attend April's offseason workouts. I'm Deb Carson.
We are FS1. Your shot at $1,000 now. Text the keyword BANK to 200-200. You'll get a text confirming entry plus iHeartRadio info. Standard data and message rates apply. That's BANK to 200-200.
Before Boost, our phone bill was obscene. I had to hide it from the kids. So we switched to Boost and got lines for the whole family with unlimited gigs for a much more family-friendly price. It's nice to have a phone bill that doesn't require parental controls.
Your family deserves better than scary phone bills. Get 4 lines for only $25 per line, each with unlimited gigs. Plus, get up to 4 free Samsung J7 perks with 6 months of Hulu, where you can stream all the shows everyone is talking about. All on the super reliable and super fast nationwide network. Boost makes it easy to switch. Switching makes it easy to save.
Offer ends 4/16/18. First line's $100 a month. Lines 2 to 4 free. Requires 1 line of port in. Includes unlimited talk, text, and data with video streams at up to 480p. Music at up to 500 kilobits per second. Gaming speeding up to 2 megabits per second. Data deprioritization during congestion. Brief runs require port-in, purchase of eligible device, and activation on plans $50 or higher. Includes 6 months of access to one Hulu limited commercial plan per eligible line for new Hulu subscribers only. Additional restrictions apply. Terms at www.boostmobile.com/Hulu-terms. Coverage and offers not available everywhere. Restrictions apply.
Mike Hudson, area president for iHeartMedia New Orleans. iHeartMedia New Orleans is growing its sales force. If you're an experienced media rep, any media, I want to talk to you. Call me, 504-679-7300, or email me, michaelhudson@iheartmedia.com. iHeartMedia is the largest media company in the world. Grow with us. We're looking for you. We'll pay you what you're worth. 504-679-7300, or email me, michaelhudson@iheartmedia.com. iHeartMedia is an equal opportunity employer.
Warning. If you're drowning in debt you can't afford, do not let the credit card companies trick you into thinking that you have to pay it all back, because you don't. What the credit card companies don't want you to know is that there's actually a way to get debt-free without paying off your entire debt or going bankrupt. If you have $5,000 or more in credit card debt, you now have the right to let us settle that debt for a fraction of what you owe. For free information, call Credit Associates now. 1-800-500-8121. We'll even show you how much money you could save. If you can't afford to pay off all your debt, do not let the credit card companies trick you into thinking that you have to. Call Credit Associates now for free information on how to get debt-free faster than you ever thought possible without debt consolidation or bankruptcy. We depend on your success and offer a guarantee, so there's no risk. For free information, call now. 1-800-500-8121. That's 1-800-500-8121. 1-800-500-8121.
The Coastal Conservation Association is a local nonprofit organization dedicated to protecting Louisiana's marine resources. The West Bank chapter of the CCA will be holding a fundraising banquet at NOLA Motorsports Park on March 29th at 6 p.m. Tickets are only $75 a person, which includes an open bar, dinner, and a one-year CCA membership. For table and ticket info, call Katie Laurent at 225-952-9200. Again, that's 225-952-9200. Or go to ccalouisiana.com.
Newly knighted Ringo Starr is set to launch a 21-stop U.S. tour with his all-star band. Following a one-off June 2nd show in Atlantic City, Starr will begin a 20-show run September 1st in Tulsa that will end with a September 29th performance in Los Angeles. Model Chrissy Teigen getting off of Snapchat because of the update in the controversial Rihanna ad of a poll that asked if users would rather slap Rihanna or punch Chris Brown. Snapchat has since taken down the ad and apologized. Jay-Z and Beyonce are reportedly filming a new music video. Pictures of the couple on a set in Jamaica, surrounded by film crew surfaced on social media. In them, they're seen riding through the streets on a motorcycle. Many speculate that whatever they are working on is going to be used for their upcoming On the Run 2 tour. What about all the times you said you had the answer? Pink forced to cancel a Detroit concert due to illness. The What About Us singer and her family battling a virus that also led her to nix a planned show in Montreal. Pink plans to reschedule both shows for later dates. Sinead O'Connor gearing up to perform live in the U.S. for the first time in 4 years. The singer revealing that she's lined up shows in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and Northampton, Massachusetts. She plans to embark on a more extensive tour this summer. The Irish singer has openly discussed battling several mental health problems, including suicidal thoughts and surviving childhood mental and physical abuse. That's entertainment. Jennifer Bolsoni, NBC News Radio.
Duncan Holder back at you Tuesday, March 27th. Jeff Duncan sitting in the pilot's seat alongside Clyde Verdun, Dave DeCorbier behind the glass. Cohort in crime, Larry Holder, still down in Orlando, Florida. And if you haven't checked out NOLA.com, Larry is cranking out reports, right and left, from the NFL owners' meetings. He had a chance to have a little breakfast, broke bread this morning with Sean Payton, so a lot of news coming out of that conversation. And here to join us in the 11 o'clock hour, the second hour, is our very own Josh Katzenstein, great NFL beat reporter for NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune, covers the Saints wall-to-wall, 24/7, never sleeps. It's all he does. And he is going to weigh in on the conversation that Sean Payton had with the media today. Josh, welcome into the program. What stood out to you about what Sean Payton said this morning? Did anything kind of raise your eyebrows?
Not particularly. I mean, I think he hit on, sort of all the needs that we've been talking about since before free agency. The Saints obviously still need some help at defensive end and wide receiver and tight end. I mean, I thought, they definitely needed a nickel, and they ended up getting that with Patrick Robinson. They needed another safety with letting Kenny Vaccaro leave, and they got that with Kurt Coleman. So, I mean, I think those are definitely the top three needs. But I was curious to see what he said about Ndamukong Suh, so the cash or cachet, sort of thing that, Larry wrote about and Payton talked about, is kind of interesting to me because, you sort of got to decide what's important to you. And I don't know that necessarily, the Saints had any more cachet to offer than the Rams right now, just with the defense they're building, playing in L.A. I mean, as someone who used to cover Ndamukong Suh in Detroit and during his first free agent, visit process, I mean, it seemed like he always wanted to be in, the biggest market possible, getting paid the most he could while also opening the most endorsement opportunities. And then going L.A., definitely offers him that while also giving him a chance to join a playoff team.
But a 1 year, $14 million deal for Suh for the Rams. I mean, I guess in terms of, contract logistics and kind of projecting out, is this a kind of 1 year hit job for him to be in LA and then kind of maximize on what he's been able to do? Like you said, that interview that we had with you about his off the field interest was eye opening for me because I didn't realize how deep it was. But 1 year and $14 million for the Rams, and then a year from now trying to figure out what happens next. How do you project forward for this now going forward for him and his career and then beyond?
Well, I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, I would think that, he probably is interested in staying in L.A., but, at the same time, I'm guessing that, the Rams weren't prepared to offer more than that because, they're going to have to pay Aaron Donald and they're going to have to pay all these other guys. So, they probably weren't willing to commit to anything longer. But from his perspective, by taking the 1 year deal now, which honestly, based on what he got paid a few years ago, this would seem like it's below market value at $14 million. I mean, he definitely, opens up the chance where if he gets more sacks this year, he can get paid more next year. And then, also the salary cap will be up again. I'm sure he knows, him and his people have already looked at all the teams that are going to have the most cap space. So certainly, he could be out of LA in 1 year, but, I'd have to imagine if they win and, everything else falls in line into his life, it's definitely a chance that, they could, bring him back for the long term.
Talking to Josh Katzenstein, Saints beat reporter for NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune. And Josh, one of the things that Sean Payton said, which I don't think is shocking to anybody, he said basically one of their offseason must-needs is an edge rusher. I think we all agree on that. The question I have is where do they find that edge rusher? There's not much left in free agency. I guess they could swing a deal with somebody, but that position is so highly in demand, I'm not sure who would want to trade a really good edge rusher. And the draft isn't really that deep. And the Saints are drafting at number 27. I guess they'd have to take a flyer on somebody there. What are your thoughts on that? Because it's clearly something that's high on the Saints' priority list.
Yeah, I mean, clearly they're going to have to, this is Jeff Ireland's time to shine once again. I agree with you. I mean, at number 27, I don't know if they can find, an impact day one, edge rusher, but, we thought last year that they were going to target that as well. They were calling that a must position last year too, and they didn't address it until the third round, which I think was their fifth or their sixth pick in the draft was Trey Hendrickson. So I mean, it's a similar situation to free agency. I mean, you have to be smart. You can't just, go overboard to fill one position or with one player. I think certainly, this draft isn't nearly as good as last year's in terms of edge rushers, but you can find somebody that, can add something to the table like what Trey Hendrickson did last year. I mean, obviously that wouldn't excite the fans very much, but I mean, at this point, you just sort of have to hope that, with Cam Jordan, Sheldon Rankins, David Onyemata, Tyler Davison, and then, just a combination of Okafor, George Johnson, Hendrickson, Al-Qadim Muhammad and whoever this rookie is. And also, I mean, they still have Hao Kakaha. I mean, you just have to hope that combination, someone can, step up and be consistent. And, whether that's a rookie, whether that's someone who just pushes those veterans to be a little bit better. I mean, I think that's sort of the only hope right now.
Well, leading into that, specifically, Josh, let's talk a little bit about Cameron Meredith. I mean, obviously, came in on a visit with the Saints this weekend, so it looks like the Saints are at least actively trying to pursue any avenues wide receiver-wise, at least through free agency right now. Can you talk a little bit about Cameron Meredith and then kind of how it seems, or at least for you, how the Saints are going about attacking at least wide receiver possibly in free agency?
I mean, I think, it made sense for them to host. Surprising to me that Cameron Meredith didn't move the needle as much as Malcolm Butler did last year when the Saints hosted him. But I mean, he's a big body receiver. I think they're just, at the point of free agency where they have to consider anyone that they think can help. And, Cameron Meredith is probably going to come at a relative discount this year just because he missed all of the 2017 season, with a knee injury. But, I mean, big body guy, he put up numbers in a poor quarterback situation 2 years ago. I think, obviously, if you add him to the group, whether they keep Willie Snead or not, I think, that would definitely make your wide receiver core better. It would also free you up in the draft probably to address, the defensive needs more so, or get a tight end. So I definitely think he's a guy that would make sense for the Saints, but at the same time, if they weren't willing to pay, the same amount of money, almost $2 million to Brandon Coleman, I don't know how much they're going to be willing to spend on Cameron Meredith because, really, with a restricted free agent, you have to find the sweet spot of, paying just more than the other team is willing to pay. And based on everything I've read, it seems like the Bears, are pretty intent on keeping Meredith. So, I mean, this could just be a situation where, they were just investigating their options if Snead leaves, but, it doesn't necessarily mean anything's going to happen.
Talking with Josh Katzenstein of NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune, covers the New Orleans Saints and does a great job for us. And, Josh, one thing that Sean Payton said that was, I don't know if it raised my eyebrows because I wasn't there to understand the context of it, but Larry Holder did tweet out that he said there was a little bit of concern with Terron Armstead's injury history and that would put a premium on maybe bolstering the depth along the offensive line, especially in light of losing Sinio Clemente. And I'm just curious, I mean, do you think tackle might be a little more of a sneaky need for this team than maybe people are recognizing? Terron Armstead's under contract through next season. I mean, he actually has more years on his deal, but there's an out after next year for the team, and they actually could get out from under that contract and save money if Terron Armstead doesn't have a big 2018. I think it's kind of a sneaky big year for Armstead to show he can be durable because they're paying him elite left tackle money for the most part, but he's had so many injuries over the last few years, he hasn't been on the field enough, and I'm wondering if maybe they look at tackle and free agency in the draft just to give them an insurance policy for him.
I certainly think that's an option. I also think, that their thought process is more just get the best offensive lineman we can, just because I think with Andrus Peat, his dual ability to kick out the tackle, I think, there's definitely a chance that if they get a backup guard, then that's a guy that if Armstead gets hurt, then Pete can kick out to left tackle. That guy can fill in, like Clemente did the past couple of years. But certainly, I mean, they definitely need to address the offensive line. I mean, I'm guessing Peyton didn't say that was a must just because, they have their starting five right now and a couple, young backups that they like. But at the same time, I definitely think, we saw last year what, being, forward thinking can do for your offensive line, with them getting Ryan Ramczyk. Fans hated that pick, but, he was one of the most important players on the team last year. So I definitely agree with you that, there's definitely reason to believe that they'll address tackle or guard, but I don't necessarily think that they're, thinking tackle is a must just because, they have, so many versatile guys.
Hey, look, we've been asking fans today on the program. I wrote a column this morning about Odell Beckham Jr. because there's a lot of talk around the league that he might be on the trade block. The Giants publicly are saying, no, we're not shopping Odell Beckham Jr. But we all know they would listen to offers, and the Rams reportedly have already called. and inquired about Odell Beckham Jr. What are your thoughts on a possible fit with the New Orleans Saints? They'd obviously have to trade probably that first-round draft pick at number 27 to even be in the mix for him. Do you see that as a possible fit for the Saints?
Of course. I totally disagree with your column. I think
what? I can't believe it.
I think Odell would make this offense like one of the most unstoppable of all time. I mean, it's already one of the best in the NFL. I mean, I would trade the first-round pick in a second if that's all it took. Just because I think, if you have Odell and Mike Thomas on the outside, Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram, it doesn't matter what you have at anywhere else. It barely matters what your offensive line looks like. I mean, those guys would just produce. I mean, I don't know how any defense would stop them. The only one that could maybe stop them is the Rams, just because of their interior pressure. But, yeah, I mean, I would definitely think that they should be. But, I mean, based on what I'm seeing, it's highly unlikely the Giants trade him. So to anyone who just got excited, I would pull it back just a little bit.
All right, look, let's go to Barry and Metter. He's got a question for Josh right now about the New Orleans Saints. Barry.
Hey, Josh. I think Beckham. I wanted to ask you a question about a free agent wide receiver, but I think Beckham is Eagles too big. I think he would be a lot of trouble in the locker room just because of his antics recently and his attitude and some of the things that he's saying publicly. The player I wanted to ask you about is Jordan Matthews. If the Saints show any interest in him, I think he would be a great fit. He's been a pretty productive receiver. He's fairly young, and I know the Saints liked him when he came out of Vanderbilt. I want to get your comments on him. Thank you.
But I don't know that he's, sort of the traditional slot guy that the Saints, like in that. I mean, I think, Willie Snead, just knowing the system, being here, already having the rapport with Drew Brees. I mean, I think he's a more valuable player right now. And I haven't heard of any interest, between the Saints and Jordan Matthews. And then you definitely, I know he dealt with injuries last year, but he didn't really produce on a Bills team that was, really desperate for wide receiver help after trading Sammy Watkins. So I think, a lot of his production in Philly, first 3 years of his career didn't really match the caliber of player he was. I mean, I think he's probably like a number 4 receiver on most teams, and that's what he would be if the Saints pursued him, but I think they're better off with Snead. As for the Beckham stuff, I mean, a lot of that, off-field stuff, wasn't even him. I mean, there's all these imposters going around getting beat up in the club, just with his hairstyle. So, I mean, I understand people worry about the ego, but, I mean, that's a guy I would take on my team, any day. If I was starting from scratch, he would be one of the probably top 10 players that I pick just because, I mean, he's one of the best, offensive playmakers in the league.
All right, Josh Katzenstein weighing in on the New Orleans Saints. So let's go to the phone lines. We got one more call.
All the calls for Josh today.
One of our regular callers, one of our regular listeners, one of our favorite people in the world, Cordell from Minnesota, checking in from the Great North, which just happens to be Cordell, Josh Katzenstein's hometown, Minneapolis. So, Cordell.
Oh, wow. North side, huh? Where you from the north side, George?
Yeah, I'm from Maple Grove.
Oh, Maple Grove. Okay, I don't live too far from Maple Grove. I live in Ramsey.
Okay, nice.
You know what it is?
Yeah, my mom used to work in Anoka.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Okay. Yeah. So listen, this is my question. Well, first of all, I just want to make a statement, and then I'll ask you a question, Josh. The first statement is, I'm glad the whole suit thing is over. I'm kind of disappointed that we missed out on him, but, oh well. I want to say that just because I want everybody to realize just because the Rams are getting all of these players and trading for all these people have to gel. It's about a team. So if all of those egos don't work out together, they can end up like the Redskins back in the days when the Redskins were spending all that money on players. But this is my question for you, Josh. There's a player out there, a wide receiver, who the Saints could probably get, who's been humbled. He was a number 1 receiver. Now, I know you guys are probably going to tear my head off for this name. But what about a person like Dez Bryant?
Oh.
I knew that's what you were going to say as soon as you said we were going to tear your head off. I mean, I still think Dez Bryant's a really good player. I do think, weirdly, I was just praising Odell Beckham, but I mean, I think Odell's, elite production. I mean, it's all about production, versus personality or headache, whatever you want to call it. I mean, Bryant has fallen off the past few years considerably, and I don't know if that's just because they've been running the ball more or, just quarterback, not looking his way as much. But I don't think that would be a great fit here. I think, I don't know. I mean, and plus they would have to, he's significantly older. I mean, that's not even one. You caught me by surprise. I hadn't even considered this. But I don't know. I just don't see it.
He wouldn't cost a lot, though, right? I mean, I don't think he would require a lot, or definitely wouldn't cost high draft picks to get him. And you just think because of his attitude, or just strictly on production, that he wouldn't fit in.
I mean, mostly production. I think the Saints right now have been trying to get younger and smarter, and I think adding Dez wouldn't necessarily do that. But I mean, certainly, they definitely could use a guy like him. I mean, just imagine having two red zone targets. I mean, that was the thing. Des Bryant, when he was at his best, I mean, you could have argued he was the best red zone target in the game. I mean, I think he had started his career off with either 3 or 4 straight seasons with 10+ touchdowns. I mean, he will fight you in the air for the ball. And about the attitude thing, I could see it working just because, when you brought up the Rams, my first thought was their whole reason for expecting, all those egos to fall in line is because they really trust Sean McVay to be the leader of that team. And obviously, Sean Payton, I think has so much respect from around the league that, anyone who steps in, whether it's Des Bryant or Odell Beckham in these, hypothetical scenarios, I think Sean Payton could probably get those guys, to check their egos a little bit. But I just don't know that Des Bryant, whatever they would have to give up for him would be worth it.
Here's the deal, Cordell, real quick. If you brought in Des Bryant, he has a $12.5 million base salary this year, a $16.5 million cap hit. The Saints could absorb that this year because they still got Mike Thomas on a rookie contract. Same thing with Odell Beckham Jr., the money he's going to account for. You could afford to pay it. The problem you've got with either one of these big-ticket receivers is what do you do when you have to pay Mike Thomas in 2020? He's going to command number one receiver money, and I don't think you can afford to pay two guys $15, $16, $20 million a year, whatever you're going to pay those guys. That's the problem the Saints are going to have cap-wise with any big-ticket receiver adding them to the roster with Mike Thomas.
Right. I just thought that Dallas was going to cut him, though.
Well, they might. They might. We'll see. We'll see if they do. Cordell, thanks for checking in, as always, from the Great North. We always appreciate it, and always love to hear Cordell's thoughts. He is wired in on the Saints. He always has good questions. Josh, finally, one last thing I want to ask you that I thought was interesting from what Sean Payton had to say today. He said he thinks he's got 3 or 4 head coaches on the staff, future head coaches. What do you think about that, and who do you think those 3 or 4 might be?
It's a good question. I would definitely, the first ones that come to mind are definitely, Dennis Allen, Dan Campbell, and Mike Nolan, just because those 3 guys have been head coaches. I mean, Dan Campbell's obviously was on an interim basis. The other guys, Aaron Glenn, I think, is probably, on the right track to doing that. I would think that, he would be a defensive coordinator target for teams, in the very near future. I wouldn't have been surprised if someone had interviewed him this year, just, based on, A, his experience in the NFL, B, what he's done with the Saints secondary. And then I also think Ryan Nielsen, I saw, Peyton praise Ryan Nielsen a lot, and just based on everything that the defensive linemen say about him, plus, how much better that group was playing last year, I definitely think that, he's a guy who's capable. I mean, I wrote a story last year about Ryan Nielsen. He texts, all these players, almost on a daily basis. He went out of his way to try to meet everyone's family. He's, building a really, close-knit family atmosphere, and he immediately earned the respect of all those guys. So I think, he's probably someone, obviously, not many people knew about, when he was the defensive line coach at NC State, but all of a sudden, he gets to the Saints, and, he could be sort of on that career path. So that's 5 guys for you. Maybe Peyton left one off.
All right, Josh, thanks for checking in, buddy. We always appreciate your insight. And, hey, you went a whole half hour with 2 callers.
Yeah,
for your segment.
I think that's a new record, man.
We might owe you a little extra money in the appearance fee category.
Well, hey, I'll take anything you're offering.
That's Josh Katzenstein, NOLA.com, the Times-Picayune Saints beat reporter. Thanks for checking in. We're going to take a break, and when we come back,
we'll talk for 2 seconds and then go to another break.
A chance to visit with Brett Martell from the Associated Press, talk a little New Orleans Pelicans, and we'll give away some Pelicans tickets while we're at it. You're listening to Dunc and Holder, Sports 1280, NOLA.com, the iHeartRadio app. Stay with us.
Corey Johnson on the neutral ground, 4 till 6.
When you get a letter from Greg Benio one day, because I'm going to have a wreck if you keep doing that Buddy Roberto stuff.
Kenny, then damn you Kong Fu and Dammy Kong. We don't want you wrecking the vehicle, Mark, over my buddy B.
Sports 1280, New Orleans.
You know, before Boost, our phone bill was obscene. I had to hide it from the kids. So, we switched to Boost and got lines for the whole family with unlimited gigs for a much more family-friendly price. It's nice to have a phone bill that doesn't require parental controls.
Your family deserves better than scary phone bills. Get 4 lines for only $25 per line, each with unlimited gigs. Plus, get up to 4 free Samsung J7 perks with 6 months of Hulu where you can stream all the shows everyone is talking about. All on the super reliable and super fast nationwide network. Boost makes it easy to switch. Switching makes it easy to save.
Offer ends 4/16/18. First lines $100 a month. Lines 2 to 4 free. Requires 1 line to port in. Includes unlimited talk, text, and data with video streams at up to 480p. Music at up to 500 kilobits per second. Gaming up to 2 megabits per second. Data deprioritization during congestion. Brief runs require port-in, purchase of eligible device, and activation on plans $50 or higher. Includes 6 months of access to 1 Hulu limited commercial plan per eligible line for new Hulu subscribers only. Additional restrictions apply. Terms at www.boostmobile.com/Hulu-terms. Coverage and offers not available everywhere. Restrictions apply.
This is Smart Hacks for your smart speakers. I'm Stacey Walter. Did you know that Alexa will read bedtime stories to your child? Yeah, just say, Alexa, tell bedtime story to Billy, and you can both sit back until one of you falls asleep.
Once upon a time.
Alexa also connects you to your favorite live radio stations with iHeartRadio. Tell Alexa to play your favorite iHeartRadio station like this. Alexa, play iHeart 80s.
Playing iHeart 80s on iHeartRadio.
iHeartRadio has all your favorite music and radio on your smart speaker. This has been Smart Hacks for your smart speakers.
This is Dunc and Holder on Sports 1280, New Orleans.
Welcome back, Dunc and Holder, Jeff Duncan, Clyde Verdun, David Corbier in the iHeartRadio studios in downtown New Orleans, and we are joined now by one of our good friends in the local media business, Brett Martell from the Associated Press, who I saw in the press box this weekend out at the Louisiana Derby, and I see quite often around town and would see tonight at the New Orleans Pelicans home game against the Portland Trailblazers, but I'm actually not going to be there tonight. I might be there a little bit late, Brett, but I wanted to get your thoughts on this big game tonight because this is kind of one of those gauge games, I think, in a lot of ways to find out where the Pelicans are at in this wild run that the Western Conference is in the middle of. We saw last night the Minnesota Timberwolves got knocked off by the Memphis Grizzlies. That's one thing I would say about the Pels. They have not dropped a game like that in some time, one that you expected them to win. But tonight they got a tall order going against the Blazers, who arguably, next to the Houston Rockets, are the best team in the NBA. How do you see this matchup tonight at the Smoothie King Center?
Yeah, well, I think that the Blazers have clearly separated themselves as one of the top 2 or 3 teams in the Western Conference and, appear to have better prospects, not only in terms of seeding, but going forward in the playoffs that New Orleans does. But New Orleans is at home. It's a big game. They've had 2 days rest. And this is kind of a game that if they win it, they can really solidify themselves as a top 4 contender. If they lose, it's not that devastating. I mean, they'll probably still make the playoffs. But to me, in this season, there's almost no point in making the playoffs if you're not a top 6 seed.
Why do you say that?
Well, I think that, with a franchise like this that's trying to grow into a legitimate contender, you'd like to have a first-round matchup where there's, more reasonable prospect for success and build some momentum going into the second round where you'll be an underdog. But by then, circumstances change over the course of the playoffs. Sometimes teams don't play as well as they're expected to in the postseason, or guys get a little banged up or hurt. We've seen how, the Warriors have struggled with some injuries this year. So you just want to, I think, you want to establish yourself this year in the top 6 to have a realistic. And of course, if they do finish 6th, they would probably go against Portland in the playoffs. So to just have a really realistic chance of getting into that second round and kind of having a playoff victory, at least one round of playoff victories to kind of build on going into the next season. It just engenders more confidence in the team that you have and in every prospective member of the team going forward, which of course includes DeMarcus Cousins.
Well, Brett, it's interesting that you say that specifically about teams that the Pelicans could possibly face going into the playoffs. They're going to have a couple of those teams come up. Starts tonight, obviously, with the Trailblazers, but after an away game at Cleveland on Friday, they're taking on the Thunder on Sunday here in the Smoothie King Center. The Thunder being the 4 seed right now, so obviously if the playoffs start today, that'd be a 4-5 matchup, first round for them, or potentially if they drop down to the 6, that's Portland again. So a few of these teams for the Pelicans that they could eventually see are coming up. How important are these games specifically for them to be able to really solidify their lineup and their base going into some of these games that they could be matched up with come middle of April?
Well, Sunday's game is really big because it almost counts as 2 in that race for 4. And currently the Pelicans, you really can't say they hold the tiebreaker, but they're in position to hold the tiebreaker if they win. Because they've won 2 out of 3. They've had some decent success against those guys. And if they could finish ahead of them in the playoffs, and then if they had to play them in the playoffs, I think it would just improve the Pelicans' prospects by virtue of being at home, where they seem to be, getting – and now they have been a good road team, but the Pelicans seem to be getting a little bit better at kind of adjusting, I guess, to the routine of playing at home and taking advantage of that more and being stronger at home, which most teams in the NBA tend to be.
So, Brett, one of the things that stood out to me about the Pelicans, we're talking to Brett Martell, by the way, of the Associated Press, who will be in the Smoothie King Center tonight for the Pelicans' big game against the Portland Trail Blazers. One of the things that you and I have talked about off the air is the Pelicans' ability recently to finish games. They've been excellent at closing out a lot of very close games. That wasn't the case early in the season, but for whatever reason, they're winning all these close games that go down, these kind of 50-50 games down to the wire. What do you think has been the reason for that? Is there anything that stands out to you about that?
Yeah, I think it probably starts with Anthony Davis and Drew Holiday's ability to really lock in defensively in late-game situations. I mean, you think about some of these close games, how often there's been a block by Davis or a steal by Holiday in the last minute, in addition to a clutch basket by Davis or Holiday. Those two seem to have really kind of figured out in the tight late-game situations how to execute, and that's a combination, I think, of ability, health, and experience and chemistry.
Yeah, I agree, and I think Rondo seems like exactly what the doctor ordered for this team. The more I think about it, the more I think about how lost they might be if they had not gone out and got Rondo in the offseason. I mean, he's a guy that knows how to make the correct pass, to find the correct player at the right time, and his defensive ability also sometimes, he's a little bit of a gambler, and he can be exposed sometimes because of his lack of size in the post when other guards post him up. But I think his decision-making alone gives this team confidence down the stretch that they didn't have before this season.
Yeah, and I can't argue with that. That's a very good point. He really is kind of a virtuoso as it comes to running the offense, and even not just finding the right guy, but knowing when it's his turn to kind of try to take it to the hole. Or he's not the best jump shooter in the world, although he did make a huge three-pointer in the most recent victory against the Lakers. That's also a really big. It turned out to be a huge acquisition for them. And then, of course, the acquisition of Mirotic and Okafor have, neither one of them has been sensational, but they just seem to have provided a role that I guess just somehow makes it easier for the Stars to execute.
I agree 100%. All right, Brett Martell from the Associated Press. Brett, thanks for jumping in on the program. Sorry, we got a little bit of a short segment here because I was negligent in our break period during the first period, so we're going to have to go short today. But we thank you for visiting the program as always, and we'll get your insight hopefully again soon. Thanks for jumping on, buddy.
All right, sounds good.
All right, Brett Martell from the Associated Press. And real quick, we're talking Pelicans. We've got some tickets to give away soon. We're going to do that after this break. And Dave's going to help us give those tickets away to the game against the Memphis Grizzlies, April 4th at the Smoothie King Center. You're listening to Duncan Holder, Sports 1280, NOLA.com, the iHeartRadio app. Stay with us.
Can play baseball and a king size tub big enough for 10 plus me.
For what you need. Your forecast on Sports 1280, New Orleans.
This report is brought to you by Zurich Classic.
From the Fox 8 Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Bruce Katz. Through the afternoon on your Tuesday, mostly cloudy skies, a windy day, slight chance of a shower at 20%, the high of 83. Tonight, mostly cloudy, 64 the overnight low, and tomorrow on Wednesday, rain chance by midday at 40% with a high of 81. Thursday, the stormy day as we go through the morning into the afternoon. Thursday's rain chance 80% with a high of 75. And then, just in time for Good Friday and the Easter weekend, we turn breezy and cooler as sunshine returns. From the Fox 8 Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Bruce Katz with your Weather Authority forecast.
Enjoy great New Orleans food from 8 local restaurants right on the 18th hole. Plus the excitement of watching the greatest golfers in the world. Now that's a party. The Champions Club at the Zurich Classic, April 26th through 29th. For tickets, call today or visit ZurichGolfClassic.com.
Stop into Lowe's Spring Black Friday event, where you'll find savings on those projects popping up on your to-do list, like taking care of those uninvited weeds and insects. Get a free refill with purchase of Roundup Max Control Weed Killer with Wand. And buy Ortho Home Defense Extended Reach Insect Killer with Comfort Wand and also get a refill free. All projects have a starting point. Start with Lowe's. Offers valid through March 28th while supplies last. See store for details, U.S. only.
At CVS Pharmacy at Target, we put a little extra heart into everything we do, like actively looking to save you money. Generics, 90-day refills, even rewards. Get a $5 Target coupon for every 10 prescriptions. On your next Target run, stop by CVS Pharmacy. We're the place with the big heart. Not valid on all prescriptions, including those purchased in Arkansas, New Jersey, or New York. Other restrictions apply. See cvs.com/extracare-target or the pharmacy for details. CVS Pharmacy at Target. Health is everything.
If you're a pro, you don't buy a little of this or that. You buy a lot of this or that. And at the Home Depot, you save even more. Save up to 15% in bulk discounts on select pro-grade products from top brands like 3M, Loctite, and Liquid Nails. As a pro, you work hard for your money. You shouldn't have to work hard to save it. Up to 15% in bulk discounts on select pro-grade products. Only at the Home Depot. More saving, more doing. See store for details.
Following a tough March filled with nor'easters, it doesn't feel like spring yet on most of the East Coast, but a New York City dermatologist is warning about sunburn. Dr. Deborah Wattenberg of Mount Sinai Hospital says you can get sunburn on a chilly day just as easily as a warm one. She says we may be especially susceptible to spring sunburn this year because of a tough flu season that had a lot of folks downing antibiotics. They're known to make you more vulnerable to the sun's rays. She and the American Academy of Dermatology recommend wearing sunscreen with an SPF of at least 30 every day, no matter what the thermometer says. Well, a new study suggests that exercising less than 20 minutes a day is linked to a shorter lifespan. Researchers at Duke and the National Cancer Institute found that people who got less than 20 minutes of moderate to vigorous physical activity had the highest risk of death. Health Update, Sarah Lee Kessler, NBC News Radio.
Our insiders are talking your teams. Sports 1280, New Orleans.
Welcome back. Jeff Duncan, Clyde Verdun, Dave DeCorbier. We are going to give away some Pelicans tickets for the Memphis Grizzlies game in the Smoothie King Center, April 4th. That's a Wednesday, so Wednesday after Easter.
Well, the key word is basically name this tune, right, Clyde?
Oh yeah. What's the name? What's the name of this song?
What's the name of this song? You get
Nice. So you call in with the name of this song. You can get a couple of Grizzlies tickets. Number 504-260-1280. Dave will take your calls, and we'll give away those tickets. And look, the Pels need all the help they can get. They need home court advantage. I was watching the Sixers game last night. They played who they play? Phoenix or Denver? It was Denver.
Denver. Yep.
And it was in Philadelphia. It was the debut of Markelle Fultz, who is the number 1 overall pick in the draft and really hasn't played all year. He's had this weird lingering injury. There's a lot of mystique and intrigue about
his shoot. Like, he went from being the leading scorer in the NCAA last year to somehow almost forgetting how to take a shot almost, and then the shot was weird, and the Sixers wouldn't confirm or deny anything. And I mean,
it was like a mental thing. Almost.
Yeah, it was almost like a mental thing. Because they didn't confirm whether or not he had a shoulder injury or some work they need to have done, because there were videos out of him shooting in pregame, and it was perplexing.
It was really strange. It was almost like a Mackie Sasser thing where he suddenly had a mental block on how to shoot. And this was the number 1 overall pick in the draft. But the point is, I'm watching the game last night. Sixers fans are into it. It's a Monday night, so it's not exactly a huge, it's not a weekend. They're playing the Denver Nuggets, not the sexiest team. Yes, they have a good team. They're probably going to make the playoffs in the Western Conference, so they're in the mix to make the playoffs. But the point I'm trying to make is the place was packed. The fans were into it, and the Sixers have already clinched a playoff spot, so it's not like they needed this game. I mean, they obviously want every win they can get, but I'm saying that in contrast to what I've seen lately in the Smoothie King Center. The Pelicans have a core of fans that are into it. In every game you go to, they have between, depending on if you want to actually go by the legitimate numbers, I'd say they have between 8,000 and 12,000 fans at every game.
Yeah.
Mainly around 10,000, but they have a core that you can count on being there every week, and they are into it, and they do everything they can to help the Pelicans have a home court advantage. The problem is the casual fan, the fan that's on the fence, that is a New Orleanian that hasn't quite bought into the Pelicans or is thinking about buying into them and wanting them to win. They're not coming out for some reason. They haven't gotten that fan, for whatever reason, to buy in, even though here they are in the middle of this playoff hunt. And I think it's disappointing. And I'm not ripping on fans. I understand there's been a lot of down times with the Pelicans. There's been a lot of frustration. But they're in it right now, and this team is, they are playing hard. They play an entertaining style of basketball, and they've had a lot of misfortune this year. They lost to DeMarcus Cousins. It would have been easy for them to basically sign off the season, but instead the front office went out. They brought in a trade for Niko Mirotic. They brought in Emeka Okafor, and they juggled the lineup. They brought in Solomon Hill, tried to rework him into the lineup. They're doing everything they can to give the fan base something to believe in, and yet, for whatever reason, it hasn't translated to butts in the seats.
Speaking of Rajon Rondo, he talked today at a Pelican shoot-around this morning. Both he and Mirotic are both questionable for tonight's game. Rondo with a wrist strain and Mirotic with a right hip flexor, I believe. So, but they're both questionable, so it could mean that both of them see time. They might not start, but they'll at least see some action tonight. But you're right. Starting tonight, these are the last 4 home games for the Pelicans this season. Last 4 home games in the Smoothie King Center, except this is not including the playoffs, because I believe that they will make the playoffs. Depending on how high they get, that's another story, but they will be in the playoffs, in my opinion. Tonight against the Trailblazers, next on Sunday against the Thunder, for the tickets we're giving away against the Grizzlies on Wednesday, April 4th, and then Wednesday, April 11th is the last home game against the Spurs. These are your last opportunities, at least, to see the team in the regular season and help them and at least provide that atmosphere. If you want a playoff atmosphere, if you want a dominating atmosphere for your arena, you got to show out, man. You got to show up. You got to show out. It's just that simple. There's nothing between, we wish the team would be good. This team is good. This team is going to finish with an above 500 record. This team is going to finish possibly, if they can get hot enough, they could potentially finish with 50 wins, which would be a huge turnaround for this team.
They're not going to win 50 games, Clark.
I'm just trying to be. I'm being a little optimistic here. I think
they'd have to win 7 of the last 8.
I'm just saying, man. They're going up against a Cleveland team that's still that's struggling, or at least struggling moderately to put it together. I think they can get over on the Grizz. They can get over on the Suns. The Warriors, clearly, after we talked about what happened to the Warriors against the Jazz a couple nights ago, I'm not saying that it's impossible, but it's they could do it. or at least get close.
It's not going to happen.
That's still a turnaround, though.
It's not
still a
gonna
turnaround specifically from where this team was and has been, which means, because you know what's great about this? We haven't talked about Alvin Gentry. We're not talking about Del Gems. We're not talking about anything that's going on off the court. We're talking about specifically matters that are on the court. We're not talking about anything front office-wise or anything like that. We are literally talking about the team, and that's where it needs to be, on this team this year in this playoff stretch where they can finish anywhere from 3 to 8 or out. Hopefully it's one of those higher seeds, but this is where it needs to be, and the fans need to show out. It's just there's no more time for excuses or blaming. Like, this team is going to be fighting for a playoff spot from now until April 11th. And by then, hopefully, they'll have a big enough spot to where they'll either be hosting that the first 2 games of a playoff, or at least knowing that you're going to get 2 here at home. And that's huge.
I agree with you in this regard. The excuses fall on deaf ears here. I'm tired of hearing, oh, it was a Monday night or a Tuesday night, it was a weeknight, or a lot of fans have to drive from the North Shore, so it's difficult to go home from work at 5 and then come all the way back over, or the team they played is not a big-name team with stars. There's always some excuse that's given to why fans don't come out. The team hasn't been good lately. Well, they're 12 games over 500 right now, and they've done that despite losing one of the best players on the team, maybe no question, the second best player on the team. So you're out of excuses. They're in the middle of the hunt. It's no longer football season. I hear that a lot. You have to wait on football season to be over with.
Football season's been over for a month and a half, almost 2 months now.
Get out there, get in the seats, and support your
Make it a
local
playoff
team.
atmosphere now before the playoff happens.
And congratulations to Stan, who won the tickets to the Grizzlies.
Stan, the man.
Let's go, Stan. Make it a atmosphere next week against the Grizz. They need it.
All right, we'll take another break. Duncan Holder coming back at you after this break.
4, 5, 6, come on and get your kicks. Now you don't need the money when you look like that, do you, honey?
With up to 16 chances a day, every weekday to win $1,000. A smart move would be to listen.
I'm a smart speaker, and I agree.
The keyword to text and win comes at the top of the hour.
The smart money is on.
Sports 1280, New Orleans.
You know, before Boost, our phone bill was obscene. I had to hide it from the kids. So we switched to Boost and got lines for the whole family with unlimited gigs for a much more family-friendly price. It's nice to have a phone bill that doesn't require parental controls.
Your family deserves better than scary phone bills. Get 4 lines for only $25 per line, each with unlimited gigs. Plus, get up to 4 free Samsung J7 perks with 6 months of Hulu, where you can stream all the shows everyone is talking about. All on the super reliable and super fast nationwide network. Boost makes it easy to switch. Switching makes it easy to save.
Offer ends 4/16/18. First line's $100 a month. Lines 2 to 4 free. Requires 1 line to port in. Includes unlimited talk, text, and data with video streams at up to 480p. Music at up to 500 kilobits per second. Gaming up to 2 megabits per second. Data deprioritization during congestion. Brief runs require ported purchase eligible device and activation on plans $50 or higher. Includes 6 months of access to 1 Hulu limited commercials plan per eligible line for new Hulu subscribers only. Additional restrictions apply. Terms at www.boostmobile.com/Hulu-terms. Coverage and offers not available everywhere. Restrictions apply.
Another money-saving secret from Arm & Hammer.
My name is Malena. I'm from Los Angeles, California. I love Arm & Hammer Sensitive Skin Plus Scent laundry detergent. It cleans really well. It doesn't irritate my skin, and it smells wonderful.
Arm & Hammer Sensitive Skin Plus Scent has a skin-friendly scent people love, so it's preferred 2 to 1 over the leading free and clear detergent, and it costs up to 30% less.
We've been on a very tight budget lately, so it's a no-brainer.
The clean you need at a fraction of the cost.
The WWE and the World War II Museum are hosting a veteran career panel and networking event Tuesday, April 3rd from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. This event is free and open to all U.S. military members, veterans, and their spouses. This free veteran career panel and networking event with Hire Heroes USA will consist of career coaching, resume writing, and interview techniques. To register for this event, go to eventbrite.com and search WWE's Veteran Career Panel and Networking Event. That's Tuesday, April 3rd from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the World War II Museum.
Mixed reviews for Fitbit's newest smartwatch. Engadget says the Versa is the best looking of the 2 Fitbit watches.
has a comprehensive range of health tracking features, a simplified operating system, boasts 4-day battery life, and at $200 is one of the cheaper smartwatches on the market. However, it does not have GPS built in, so you'll have to use your phone if you want to track your running route, and there's no Fitbit Pay. You can't buy things directly from your watch. Google out with some education-focused tablets. The Acer Chromebook Tab 10 integrates into IT systems of schools to give students a device they can pass around and jot notes on with stylus and touch controls. The 9.7-inch tablet retails for $329. You can now watch the end of a basketball game for just 99 cents. The NBA is testing the 99-cent stream that lets you watch the final quarter of a live game through the NBA app. One other hoops note, YouTube TV is now the first ever presenting sponsor of the 2018 NBA Finals. Tech Report, Larry Olson, NBC News Radio.
I'm Jeremy Schaap. I have Crohn's disease. The Crohn's and Colitis Foundation of America's Take Steps Walk program is dedicated to raising funds and awareness to combat Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis. To find a walk site near you, visit www.cctakesteps.org.
Dunc and Holder now. Eric Asher next at noon on Sports 1280 New Orleans.
Welcome back, Jeff Duncan, Clabberdan, Dave DeCorbier, Duncan Holder. Got about 6 minutes left in this action-packed 2-hour program. Talking Saints and Pelicans as usual. And also, I think we'll talk a little bit about the Final Four this week because that's coming up this weekend. And it's quite an intriguing Final Four. 3 Blue Bloods and the Loyola Chicago Ramblers. Did you have Loyola in your bracket, by the way?
Nope. I'm pretty sure. I haven't looked at my bracket since everything went haywire with UMBC. So I just, it's not worth it to look at.
How can you not pull for Loyola? I mean, I think all of America is pulling for them now.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, except for Jalen Rose's grandmother and Jalen Rose, because obviously they're playing Michigan. So
understood. You have an allegiance.
Yeah, they have an allegiance. Although I guess now it's a rivalry between Sister Jean and Jalen Rose's grandmother. So it's just like, all right, let's get all the old folks out. Just have a Royal Rumble, man. Let's do it. Let's go.
Sister Jean's going to win that rivalry.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, she's got Jesus on her side, so she's probably going to win.
I want a Sister Jean bobblehead. They're selling them right now. I think they're $30-something. They're already on eBay. I want one of those. We need one on the set.
Yeah, we need to bring our bobbleheads back when we go to the new studio.
Yes, assuming we have a new studio.
Yeah, that's true.
What's going to happen with that?
Which reminds me, I have to talk to Dave about that when the show's over. But both Final Fours are set now, both the men and the women. Your Louisville Cardinals will be taking on the Mississippi State Bulldogs on Friday, and the other half of that matchup will be the Notre Dame Fighting Irish against the undefeated and top overall seed UConn. They both won last night. So
it's all number 1 seeds.
It's a 1 seed. Yeah, actually it's it's all number 1 seeds. Yeah, you're right. So yeah, it's all
chalk.
1 seeds.
All chalk.
Hey,
women's basketball, not a lot of parity in women's basketball.
Well, it's starting to. No, don't give me any of that. It's starting to be that way. It's not that way yet, but it's starting to be that way. You can't say that if you didn't see Central Michigan do what they did, Buffalo do what they did,
when they do that to UConn, I'll say there's parity.
Well, look, man, it's like
UConn's winning by 40.
It's like I said, shoot, man, they put it on South Carolina last night.
That's my point.
South Carolina, Asia Wilson, 3-time SEC Women's Player of the Year, unprecedented, never happened before. One of the best players in SEC history, and they literally put it on them last night, hitting it from outside, taking them inside. UConn's on a mission, though. I'm telling you, what happened to UConn last year, that's the thing that I would like to see. Mississippi State, UConn, national championship game, rematch of last year's Final Four, where Morgan Williams hit that shot to knock out UConn and go on to eventually, unfortunately, lose to South Carolina in the national championship game last year. That's what I want to see this year. Rematch, State, UConn, for it all. UConn was something to prove, won a 12th national championship. Mississippi State looking that last year was not a fluke.
How many games has UConn lost in the last 5 years?
They said yesterday they only have 1 loss in their last 3 years. They are 117 out of 118. That only loss.
And you're telling me there's parity.
Was last year to Mississippi State in the Final Four. That's their only loss. 117 out of 118. It is absurd.
I know it is absurd,
but that team, like I said, the team is on a mission. They don't lose, or they don't lose how they lost last year to a team in state that had never been that far and it's going to be interesting. But all like the Final Fours on both sides, I'd be very interesting. You're going to have a Friday, then you have Saturday, you have Sunday, and you have Monday.
Collada is into it. My goodness, he's
it's my time of year, man.
Up about women's basketball.
Love it. Well, I mean, basketball at this time, Final Four. We're talking about the Final Four. Talking about obviously, one shining moment, all that kind of stuff. That's where we are. I mean, this is the best time of year for me. I love it. MLS has started. Final Four. Baseball starts next week. Aussie Rules started this past weekend. Fired up, man. Love it.
In case you missed a couple of news items that we had early in the program, Melvin Frazier, the junior swingman from Tulane, has declared for the NBA draft. He's going to test the waters. He's not going to hire an agent, but he is going to look into it, and most likely, I'd say, probably gone from Tulane. That's a big loss for Mike Dunleavy and his staff, but something that they were quite prepared for, I believe, and it's good for the program to send a player like Melvin Frazier on to the NBA. It's only going to help them in recruiting. And also Jim Furyk and David Duvall have committed to the Zurich Classic, and we are excited about that. We'll be out at the Zurich Classic that week of the tournament. We're going to be broadcasting from out there, hopefully on the course, hopefully at one of the maybe the Acme Oyster Tent or something. I don't know if you've been out there. That would be
terrible. Whatever we can go to that can bring us stuff, I'm all about it.
Yeah, I'm excited about that, and hopefully we get some good weather. They've had some bad luck with weather lately at the Zurich, but that's a great headliner tandem. And I want to thank Larry Holder, Josh Katzenstein, and Brett Martell for joining the program. As always today, made it an action-packed couple hours. I want to thank Dave DeCorbier for spinning the wax, especially for giving me my Disturbed hit. Always love that. And Clyde, for as always, even though I have to overcome your exuberance, always appreciate your fact-finding and ability to spread.
He called you exuberant.
I'll take it.
Diversity.
I've been called worse.
When I say the diversity, I mean all the different sports that you have great knowledge on, because I certainly need that help when I can. And if you missed the program, try listening to our podcast on Sports 1280 and NOLA.com.
And Free Ticket Tuesday rolls on, baby. We got tickets in the Eric Asher Show and Chris Woody.
Awesome.
What Dave said.
Yeah.
Join us tomorrow. Duncan Holder. Be back on Wednesday.
Crack so against the